Hallo, hallo.
Welcome, distinguished guests, all of you who are here in the pavilion and all of you who are listening online. I am Thomas Rebermark. I'm the director of Swedish Waterhouse at Stockholm International Water Institute, and I will try to convene the day as best as I can. So most welcome. We are currently undergoing a climate, biodiversity, and human crisis. Water is inseparably linked to all of them. Climate changes increases water cycle variability. It's resulting in extreme weather events, reducing water availability, predictability, lowering water quality, and negatively impacting biodiversity. And the protection of human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation around the world. So, water is essential to our survival, but we're yet to take holistic action to protect it. Just sustainable solutions comes from cooperation and collaboration between sectors, enabling us to harness the power of collective action. Only by acting responsible, breaking barriers, and working together, we can find climate solutions that benefit gender balance, our children, our planet, and the ecosystems. Together, we can restore, protect, utilize, and enhance nature's existing processes to help us reduce and capture carbon, maintain, increase biodiversity, and provide environment and water for nature and people to thrive. Bearing in mind that as we are here in Sharm el-Sheikh today, worldwide, 2.2 billion people still lack access to safe drinking water. More than half of the global population does not have access to safe sanitation. The Water Pavilion itself is intended to support water and climate communities in meeting their goals by gathering leaders from government, civil society, businesses, and academia through panels, workshops, and tech exposure. With the objective to present, discuss, and raise awareness on possible means to amplify solutions to overcome water and climate-related challenges, focusing on the role of water for climate actors and negotiators at COP27. Hence, it is important to emphasize that the Water Pavilion activities proposed by the Ministry of Water, Resources and Irrigation and all the 40 partners that you can see behind me aim to underline the importance of a more unified global voice for the water and climate communities through continuous dialogue and collective action. This by elevating the understanding of the interrelationship between water and climate-related challenges in an exclusive, equitable, transparent effort that will reflect the collaborative and co-creating purpose and partnerships behind the pavilion itself. This by focusing on a specific perspective each of the 9 days. 9 days in a water pavilion filled with energy, expertise, and ambition from people who constantly seek solutions, cooperation, and action for climate and water. I'm honored to introduce all the thematic leaders, presenting their reflection and feedback on each of the thematic day, covering launched initiatives and reports on each day, the most important messages and recommendations from your day, and your recommendations for ways forward related to the UN 2023 conference. Please, all thematic leaders, join me on the stage and we will start the thematic day session. Please, all of you at the same time. Yes, an applaud. Please stand up. So I will ask you not to introduce all of you, but you will have to introduce yourself. So just your name, your role, your organization, and then we will go back to starting with Ijeoma Emanyo from African Development Bank as a starting, and then we will move the microphone between you as we speak. So please, you can start.
All right. Good morning. My name is Ijeoma Emanyo. I'm the Chief of Chief Water Resources Management Officer at the African Development Bank.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Oyare. I lead the Blue Heart of Africa Initiative, Worldwide Fund for Nature. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Catherine Cross. I'm the Strategy and Partnerships Lead with the Australian Water Partnership.
Very good morning, everyone. Sabah al-Khair. I'm Jorge Alvarez Sala. I'm the Acting Senior Advisor for Water and Climate Resilient WASH at UNICEF headquarters.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hiba Al-Hariri. I'm a water advisor working at FAO, Regional Office for Near East and North Africa.
Hello, Jonathan Stone from the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction.
Good morning. My name is Danny Gaillard-Pichet. I am Senior Specialist for Global Processes at the Global Water Partnership.
Sabah al-Khair. Good morning. Ingrid Timbo, Policy Director at the Alliance for Global Water Adaptation.
Thank you, Ingrid. So we start with Mr. Ijeoma. Please, your 5 minutes and key takeaways.
Thank you. I think we have some slides very quickly. All right. Okay, thank you. Just very quickly, I think I have 5 minutes, so I'll do this fast. So we had a couple of sessions. The first session on sort of the Asia and the Pacific Water Resilience Initiative, blended finance solutions and multi-stakeholder partnerships to scale urban water resilience, unlocking non-concessional financing for water and climate resilience, financing transboundary water resilience, and financing climate resilience in water sanitation in WASH. Just a quick overview of what happened. This day was co-created by the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, and WRI, the Water Initiative. 44 organizations actively contributed to the day. 6 initiatives were launched or highlighted, and included representatives from Africa, Asia, Middle East, and Europe. So some of the initiatives launched was the Asia and the Pacific Water Resilience Initiative, the Water Resilience Trust Fund, which has initial support from the government of the Netherlands, a replenishment of the Sanitation Financing Partnership Trust Fund by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and a soft launch of the Africa Cities Water Adaptation Fund. So the key messages from TD1 were there needs to be a strong combination of capacity development and financing as they have mutual importance. There is challenge within governments to plan, operate, and maintain infrastructure. Water is the primary medium through which the effects of climate change are felt, and water is the connector between sectors. So that's really just a bunch of pictures. But just my own take very quickly. I think a lot of things came up, as you can see, but I think one of the key issues is really around sort of valuing water as opposed to pricing water, and really thinking about how, especially for the next year's conference, how we can sort of really focus on valuing water and looking at water, cross-sectorally, as opposed to just, wash and so on, and looking at water for energy and food and so on. So the nexus, the water nexus. So yeah, so that's sort of my take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ijeomo. Please, next, Carol Kuchani Cherfan from ESCWA. Can you? Oh. Oh, we need the pictures the slides to go forward. Virtually, okay. Okay. I'm most happy to see you, Walid. I wasn't sure that it was going to be you, but
Okay, so we have some slides. Thank you,
yeah.
Thank you, Thomas.
Most
can
welcome,
we print that?
Mr.
Can we have the slide on the screen, please? So I'm presenting you the thematic days 2, the co-curators was UNESCO and ESCWA. The title was Climate Resilience, Low Carbon Approaches Systems. We have 4 sessions actually and a high-level segment. So the key message from the first session was wastewater treatment actually is an efficient way to reuse water. It proved to be much efficient than using fossil groundwater and desalination. Transformative and sustainable circular solutions should be found that should be feasible, desirable, and viable. Circular sanitation explores the ways to use human wastes into the agriculture system. The second session was about sanitation, water and sanitation services, how to contribute to climate change mitigation. The key messages are there is an untapped potential of water and sanitation service to contribute to climate change mitigation. 3 to 5% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from the water sector. And we have some case studies that prove that is really possible in France, Egypt, and Jordan. Next. Section 3 was towards regional coherence and cooperation of the Central Asian countries. The key messages are a regional statement was declared by the 5 Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. They are committed to reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, achieving carbon neutrality by 2050, and developing strategies for green economy transition. I would say also Tajikistan and the Netherlands will co-host the UN2023 water conference, which is the second ever and the first after almost 50 years to discuss water challenges and solutions. Next. The high-level segment was about the AWARE initiative, action on water adaptation and resilience initiative. The key messages are we need more action and less talking. So that's why you have the word action in the initiative. Technologies should be fitting to the targeted audience, beneficiaries, with the support of investment and engineering. Putting water and adaptation at the heart of the development agenda is the only way to creating jobs, achieve sustainable growth, and prosperous future. To make project actionable, we need knowledge at the basin level so that private sector and the community can come together to make action. The fourth session about the freshwater's role in the climate change mitigation came with a number of messages. Climate mitigation cannot succeed without water. Having access to water is critical for all the transformations needed to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change, climate strategies can get more effective through integrated approaches that recognize that and address the systematic and connected nature between water and climate change mitigation. We have a number of challenges regarding the water, climate, energy, and the food sectors, and they must be addressed jointly. There are a number of integrated approaches to do that. Examples are the IWRM approach, source-to-sea management, and landscape approach. Climate solutions that work with nature can provide multiple benefits, including healthy ecosystems, livelihoods, energy generation, greenhouse gas sequestration, and protection from the impacts of global warming. There is a big potential in improved wastewater treatment and sanitation services, since this can reduce greenhouse gas emissions while improving the life of people living in poverty. This is the last slide. We say the three key messages that came from the thematic day 2 that can also be conveyed to the high-level events. Stakeholders should be more involved in tangible actions rather than just talking. Acknowledge the importance of vital water resources and circular water uses, and highlight nature-based solutions to improve water supply and ensure clean water, while contributing to mitigation through the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. With that, I conclude my key message for thematic day 2, and thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much, Mr. Walid, for very last minute coming in and taking over the thematic day presentation. Much valuable. And it also shows the importance of pragmatism and adaptation. So it's a very good example. So please, I would like to welcome Loretta Heber from UNDRR. And it's not going to be Loretta, it's going to be someone else. So, of course, most welcome.
Hi, firstly, apologies that you've got me this morning rather than Loretta, who is a far more accomplished communicator than I am. But I will try and kind of progress through these, the large number of sessions that UNDRR helped to host at the event, if you can go forward. So we had a DRR day, and huge thanks to IWMI, and also to our really strong and important partners, the World Meteorological Organization. And I hope that as I say things during this, that it really comes across that none of this is possible through partnerships. Not only the delivery of events like this, where we can all learn things at COP, but much more importantly, the delivery of services and assistance to people. So do I have a control of the slides, or do they just... Oh, wow. Thank you. I'm such a professional. Okay, so I won't bore you with the context. We all know this very well, and hopefully the slides will be shared afterwards. But we had 6 events during the day, which covered a huge range of issues, and all of them around the kind of this risk management theme. And I suppose coming from the Office of Disaster Risk Management, Disaster Risk Reduction, we're used to working with lots of different partners. And so I think one common message that we heard coming out regularly from all of the water events was that, water really is an issue for everyone. Everyone is involved in it. There is no one person or one organization that owns water. And it really does symbolize an awful lot of the issues that particularly the poorest and most vulnerable face. And so I won't expect you to read all of these things. They'll be shared with you afterwards. But just to sort of summarize, I think what we heard from the day was there are sort of 3 key shifts that are needed. And the first one is really this shift towards looking at drivers of vulnerability. So when we think about water and what makes people vulnerable to a lack of water or difficult access to water, and what kind of challenges around water stress does to people, it really drives vulnerability. And by vulnerability, we mean, poverty, exclusion, marginalization, the real things that stop people from managing to progress in their lives. And so what we're noticing with this kind of in our risk reduction theme, and as you know, risk is made up of, vulnerability and hazard and exposure. It really is these drivers of vulnerability that seem to be the biggest kind of factor when it comes to risk. And we can see the same with water. The second shift that we're thinking of is this shift towards highly fragile and climate vulnerable areas. So, I know it's difficult enough in kind of developed cities to have good and clean access to water, but in these really stressed contexts, it can be even worse. And then the third one is this shift back from the edge. We know that many people, there's 800 million people going to bed hungry each night at the moment. Lots of people are right on the edge of tipping into needing, really quite extreme humanitarian assistance for a long time. And water is a really key part of that to really help people stay away from that. And again, we're seeing lots of themes coming up around partnerships that are absolutely critical. And then also around, particularly this focus on cities, which is where an awful lot of people are. And I think more than ever, we're slowly moving from this rhetoric of working together and working across sectors into really seeing it happen in action. So it was very exciting in lots of the events from some of the partners to really actually show on the ground how people are working multi-sectorally, for example. We say this a lot, but actually, what does it look like in practice? It was very exciting to see some examples of that. And one of these key areas that we might have an opportunity to do this is with the Early Warnings for All initiative, which obviously the UN Secretary General launched and WMO are taking a key leadership role in. And I think we're really, challenged and excited by the opportunity to deliver in this area. And finally, there's a little bit of stuff around, this idea of the solutions might not be the biggest technical, hugest kind of fixes and, municipal kind of city level interventions to fix or address water issues, but many of them are actually low cost, green technology, locally led. And so, yeah, that would be, before I go on to the next person's slide, that really is my main reflection, is this really requires partnership between us all. And that was what was so encouraging. So thank you to the Water Pavilion for providing us this opportunity. And I'll pass on to the next now.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I must say, your communication skills are excellent. So please, next in line, Heba Al-Hariri from FAO, most welcome. We have seen each other a lot, and there is your thing.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. I will be reporting on Thematic Day 4. Thematic Day 4 was co-curated by EMI and FAO in collaboration with more than 30 partners who came together to discuss climate smart agriculture for food security, adaptation, and sustainability. So just to give you a quick background on the context very quickly, the interconnected systems of land, water, and soil are now stretched to a very thin limits, and climate change is exacerbating the pressure on water and land resources to a point where the productivity of agriculture systems is now compromised, and this can be actually felt with the direct impact on global food systems as well. So what we aim to do is basically to see how we can discuss the role of climate smart agriculture in doing the required transformation for agri-food systems to achieve food and water and climate security. So during the day, we try to cover different topics, starting from an opening session where we discussed climate smart agriculture for science, policy, governance, and finance. And then we had a discussion in agriculture in water scarce context. We had also a high-level segment where we discussed the government agencies and donors' requirements and needs in water and agriculture for food security, adaptation, and sustainability. We've tried also to tackle innovation, technology, and digital agriculture, and had several discussions on building climate resilience agri-food systems. And we ended the day with a very interesting session on water management in nomadic indigenous people's food systems. The day also witnessed the launch of FAO regional report on the state of land and water resources. And this is basically a flagship publication by FAO Regional Office for Near East and North Africa, representing the latest trends and latest challenges in the most important agricultural production factors, land and water. So the key messages that came out from this day, first, that we need to continue looking at the different systemic risks that are produced from different sectors, food, energy, water, and environment, and also looking at the socioeconomic considerations that are associated with those systematic risks. And this requires long-term research, governance, and financial initiatives that can accelerate learning and synergies and synergize the interactions between policy, science, governance, and finance. We also need to enhance the adoption of climate smart agriculture, which should be also coupled with integrated land and water resources management techniques. in order to try to reverse the land and water resources degradation trends that we have been observing. On the financial aspects, financial institutions and the donor communities should also work together to overcome the financial gaps. And we have received recommendations to try to enhance the coherence between the different financing channels, and that also the agriculture programs and investments should be directed towards more environmental and social gains. Innovation is still thought to be the primary force behind the transformation of agri-food systems. And by innovation, we're not only focusing on the technology, but we would like also to look at innovative business models that can be replicated, innovative financial mechanisms that can also be replicated. We also need to work on enhancing the enabling environment for the climate smart agriculture practices, focusing on enhancing the adequate capacities for farmers, microfinancing, and also the extension of services, considering that the economic incentives are still considered the most convincing factors for the farmer adaptation. Finally, we need to make use of the wealth of indigenous knowledge that we have, particularly in food systems and water management. And this can only be done through the proper inclusion of the indigenous groups in the identification of solutions through participatory and inclusive planning processes. Finally, on the commitments, we had several commitments, of course, to take those messages into the UN2023 conference and also to the COP28, but FAO also was committed to promote those integrated approaches and integrated messages in its upcoming event on Rome Water Dialogue, which is going to be organized on the 29th of November, 2022, and also in its support to the development of national water roadmaps towards the achievements of the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hiba. A very comprehensive information from all the things that happened at your day. And I'm most happy to welcome Ingrid Tibe from AGWA to let us know a little about Thematic Day 5.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Before I talk a little bit about Thematic Day 5, I just want to say, first of all, Alf Shukr and Alf Mabruk. Big congratulations to our Egyptian colleagues for these 2 weeks for this pavilion and for all of your hospitality here in beautiful Sharm el-Sheikh. It's been really wonderful and inspiring to be here. So just thank you so much. So I have the honor of presenting Thematic Day 5, where we were talking about adaptation, resilience, and cooperation. Do I have this? Okay, great. So there was a lot happening. That's a lot to cover. But we had, I think, 6 total sessions covering a range of topics. And so some of the tried to pull out some of the key messages from those. And so the first one being that science-based tools, including water resilient measurements, and I'm going to come back to that actually at the end, are needed to achieve human and ecosystem resilience and should be included in the forthcoming framework of the Global Goal on Adaptation. And I can say that based on the draft of the GGA text that we got just this morning, it's there, and that's fantastic. So it's still a draft, it's still in negotiation, but it is listed there. And so that puts the pressure back on us as a community to respond to that and help support the parties in actually finalizing the GGA by COP28. Second, the complexity of ecosystems requires systems thinking and action, which in the case of water brings climate resilient water management to the fore. Those most affected by climate change and water-related challenges are often one and the same and often excluded from the decision-making processes. Locally led adaptation and resilience, this is a theme that came through the day, and all of the sessions must be at the fore of our work on both WASH and on water management. We had a great session on transboundary water cooperation in the Jordan River Basin, and if you did not see that session, I recommend going and watching that one. It was fantastic. But we really need new transboundary rules and agreements so that water is not taken hostage by different potential conflict processes, nor does it become an additional source of conflict. And then finally, cities are hubs of innovation when it comes to building water resilience. We had a great cities event, and urban resilience depends on multi-stakeholder processes where basin users collaborate because one user group cannot move the needle alone. And I will say also, and this comes into kind of some of the recommendations going forward, what we're hearing a lot about outside of this pavilion and what we hear about at COP all the time is about transformative approaches to adaptation. And so these are the kind of things that, that we really saw coming out of the sessions on day 5. In the interest, I can't advance the slides on here and not on here. So, so in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of the initiatives and reports that were launched, but definitely take a look at the website and there'll be links to all of these. But there's a lot going on with the UNFCCC. There's a lot with the Adaptation Academy. Definitely check that out. A lot going on around NBS, IWRM and climate change adaptation, kind of trying to link those. And then a lot of net zero commitments coming out as well. So please do check these out. And then finally, proposals and commitments for UN 2023 and COP28. So these are kind of 5 areas that we wanted to draw out. So recognizing that the draft COP27 cover decision calls for, as I mentioned, transformational approaches to enhancing adaptive capacity, strengthening resilience, and reducing vulnerability to climate change, we commit to advancing holistic, inclusive water solutions from both the public and private sectors. And I'm also happy to say that in the draft cover decision that I have a copy of here, water is mentioned 6 times. It talks about comprehensive water resources management, the critical importance of protecting water and freshwater dependent ecosystems, but also it links to other systems critically as well, to food systems, to oceans, to cities. And that's actually what we really want to see because, again, we're talking about transformational adaptation. So this is a draft decision. There's going to be a lot of changes that happen in the next 48 hours, but it's so impressive to see this here finally. This is something we have been working for years. And so I will be sitting in those rooms for the next 2 days and we'll see where we go. So moving on, supporting parties, and this is what I mentioned previously, supporting parties in the formulation of the global goal on adaptation at COP28 through the development of water-related resilience indicators, prioritizing the protection and restoration of freshwater dependent ecosystems, and then expanding capacity building networks and programs. This was something that also came out of the day a lot. There's so many interesting and innovative collaborative partnerships such as the Resilient Cities Network, the UNFCCC Adaptation Academy, the Water Resilience Coalition. There were many others that were presented to co-create inclusive, resilient futures for all. On the science side of things, advancing scientific understanding, research, and implementation of systemic approaches to water management, incorporating land, oceans, energy, food systems, human health and well-being with local communities at the center. And then last but not least, we had a session on the Fair Water Footprint. And so we all encourage you to join the Fair Water Footprint at UN Water 2023 conference. And so please definitely join us in March. And so I hope to see you in New York in March, and I hope to see you back here, inshallah, well, not here, but in the UAE next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very, very fulfilling, and your engagement is fantastic. I'm just pleased to stand here beside you. Thank you for that. It's an honor. And thank you also for seeing me multitasking when I ask you to slow down. It's not because you talk too fast, but actually we want the listeners that are online to be able to hear. So I emphasize that we speak in a speed where the interpretation can go smoother, so everyone can listen in on those important topics. So with having said that, I would love to see after Ingrid, Miss Catherine Cross from AWP, please.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to first thank the co-curators of the day, which includes the American University of Cairo, African Development Bank, Water for Women, and my colleagues at the Australian Water Partnerships, as well as the other session organizers throughout the day. We were tasked with creating a program for November 14th, the Water, Energy and Climate Nexus Day, which happened to coincide with the first ever day dedicated to water at a climate COP. So this was an important milestone for the water community and for recognizing that water must be at the center of climate change adaptation as well as mitigation. And as Ingrid mentioned, the importance of linking to other systems. So the opening panel kicked off with highlighting the importance of understanding the interaction between water, energy, and climate, but also emphasized that it cannot be separated from food and the environment. Understanding all the intersections is seen as vital to address climate change. And then this was a constant theme throughout the day. Sessions ranged from enabling political governance and institutional frameworks to on-the-ground solutions which link water, energy, and climate. This is also including the use of digitalization, big data science, and decentralization, as well as the importance of localized partnerships, which we've heard already. The middle of the day celebrated the soft launch of the International Panel on Deltas and Coastal Areas. This was moderated by Henk Ovink and involved ministers from the Netherlands, Egypt, and Bangladesh. And this initiative is supporting coastal areas and deltas in their efforts to cope and adapt to the impacts of climate change and to enhance the resilience of their valuable ecosystems, livelihoods, and economic assets. The initiative has been set up by the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management and includes Deltaris, the Global Center on Adaptation, and the Delta Alliance. The launch event also included the Asian Development Bank and the Global Climate Fund. The official launch is going to be at the UN2023 Water Conference. Secondly, the International Energy Association launched a report on climate resilience for energy security, which provides a comprehensive overview of the climate impacts and hazards facing energy systems. So the key messages for the day were that, as we've heard, water needs to be at the forefront of both climate change adaptation and mitigation. And this can be through nature-based solutions as well as technologies, as water is both the first victim of climate change and the first vector of its impacts on our societies. However, management of water in relation to energy can be part of the solution. Currently, discussions exist around energy efficiency, but they are not necessarily coupled with water efficiency. But this can be addressed through sound business models to ensure long-term sustainability. Secondly, we need to move from working in silos. I think we hear this over and over again, to working collectively across both sectors and scales. There's a need to ensure high-level policy coherence between water, food, and land policies, and also cross-sectoral consultation and collaboration can actually provide a starting point for developing integrated solutions. Thirdly, bringing together different stakeholders and diverse voices can help support identification of implementation of new and innovative solutions. Sometimes the most vulnerable are not just the victims, they can provide the solutions. And this requires inclusivity, which means listening and engaging with these diverse stakeholders. So our recommendations for the UN2023 Water Conference and COP28 are of a similar flavor. There's the recognition of the interaction between water, energy, and climate, but it cannot be separated from food and environment. It's all a systems approach that needs to be recognized and is vital to address climate change. We need to break the silos. We urgently need to address institutional fragmentation and put in place regulations and policies that are coherent and appropriate. And again, water needs to be at the forefront of climate change adaptation mitigation. So it needs to have a place in discussions around climate change as a key element of energy production and as a user of energy. And partnerships is the only way we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And don't excuse for repeating those words. We need to say them over and over again. Inclusivity and collaboration and breaking silos. That is what we need to do. And when we get tired of those words, yeah, well, get on it again. We need to. So thank you. So now it's time for Erik Oyare from WWF. Most welcome, Erik.
Thank you, Thomas. I have the honor to present the report for Thematic Day 7, which was focusing on biodiversity and nature-based solutions. This session was jointly co-curated by WWF, IUCN, and the Nature Conservancy. Just as I start, just giving a quick context about the Thematic Day. It's really been an honor joining the COP27. And for me, working in the water space, especially freshwater, I think I would like to underscore the fact that what I've seen evident across majority of the pavilions is the essence of water, and water, the nexus and the central role water is playing in supporting climate adaptation. So for me, that is a key reflection. And in this thematic day, we had a total of 7 side events, ranging from how nature-based solution is playing a key role in supporting resilience building from vulnerable communities, how nature-based solution is playing a very key role in supporting river deltas from the impacts of sea level rise, how nature-based solution and especially engaging stakeholders, a wide array of stakeholders in the delivery of nature-based solution is key, and how mobilizing finance to support implementation of nature-based solution is the key way to help us build climate adaptation, especially to freshwater risks. During this thematic day, we launched a key report, which is looking at how to ensure equitable stakeholder engagement in the delivery of nature-based solution, how that is going to help us build success in the delivery of nature-based solution projects. This was a report that was launched by CEO Water Mandate during the side event on accelerating nature-based solutions for adaptation, engaging stakeholders, and securing finance to build climate resilience. In terms of our key messages and recommendations, overall, we are looking at 3 key topical issues. One is a call to bridge the financing gap on nature-based solution as a component of climate adaptation. Evidence and research has showed us that out of the nearly $80 billion US dollars that has been committed to finance adaptation, only about 1.5% is flowing to support implementation of nature-based solutions for adaptation. And therefore, for us, as a coalition, as a partnership, rallying also other stakeholders to join this, especially financiers, investors, is to look at how do we ramp up support to finance large-scale nature-based solutions to help communities, especially the vulnerable communities, build their cushion and support their resilience building. Number 2, we are looking at how do we promote, especially working with policymakers, working with different governments, the mix of having green and grey infrastructure as the best way, as the win-win solution to address climate resilience and adaptation, and how budgets, financing, global financing mechanisms, including the Global Environment Facility and other funding mechanisms, can be able to ramp up support to especially help us prioritize nature-based solutions to be able to address impacts of climate change, which, according to the IPCC report, climate risks are water risks, and looking at aspects like drought, famine, flooding, and sea level rise. Finally, we are looking at how do we promote stakeholder engagement, especially equitable stakeholder engagement, communities, vulnerable communities. There's a lot of speakers underscoring the fact that engagement of stakeholders is important, and especially leaving no one behind. And therefore, for us, we are saying nature-based solutions are a whole of society approach. Integrating multiple stakeholders is important to delivery of social, economic, and environmental goals around climate change. And finally, as we move towards UN Water 2023 in March next year, and especially COP28 in UAE, we are looking at a wide array of recommendations. And number 1, we are looking at as a collaboration, IUCN, WWF, and the Nature Conservancy, looking at a rallying call around nature-based solutions being center in the water action plan that will be coming out at the UN Water 2023 conference. We want this to be supported by champions in multiple governments and entities. Number two, we want and we are calling on representatives of the US who have already committed to work in collaboration to elevate nature-based solutions through the US Water Security Strategy and the Nature-Based Solutions Roadmap to be able to help us, build the centerpiece of nature-based solution, especially at the UN Water Conference, and be able to see a collaborative rallying call around that. Thirdly, we are calling on the Egyptian government, which has committed to continue advocacy for water being at the heart of climate action, to help build, follow-through actions, especially building from COP27, from Sharm el-Sheikh moving forward. And finally, we are looking at organizers of the NBS Day being able to have a work plan, which we've already displayed there, to help work around having a side event, same in the UN Water 2023 conference. Thank you so much. I want to leave by saying water, nature-based solution, finance, stakeholder engagement is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And next, we would like to have Danielle Girard-Picher, I hope I pronounced it right, from Global Water Partnership. Most welcome.
Thank you very much. My job is easy because I've heard the messages that I'm going to present reiterated by a number of you already, so that's reassuring. We did have about 250 people that followed the events throughout the day, and we had good gender, regional balance, and a high level of youth participation, and that is to be expected, of course, because this was the day on inclusion. We did have 6 events throughout the day with organized with 27 partners. There were a number of initiatives and reports. There's more than what is here. These are 3 that actually were all initiated by youth. So it shows the vibrancy of the youth that are coming forth and being innovators. There was a campaign called Water Generation. There was a regional statement of Central Asian youth on climate change and a call for action on the power of wetlands. So I'd invite you to go and investigate some of those in your spare time. So in terms of the important messages and key recommendations, there are 2 that were applicable to all types of interaction, representativity, inclusion, because we did focus on youth, women and gender, and indigenous peoples through the lens of locally led action. So first of all, what we heard is that the voices of the underrepresented groups needs to be heard more often and more loudly so that policy development can be more inclusive. And that can only be done if the financing for inclusion is actually accessible and maintained. So those were the 2 main messages that were probably cross-cutting for all of the sessions of the day. And then we had 3 separate messages each to each of the different types of stakeholders. So on the youth-led action, there is enormous amount of activity that's already happening, and we heard great examples from around the world. Young people are motivated, engaged, and passionate about finding solutions to water and climate, and their enthusiasm is actually infectious, and it actually inspires older generations to be more active. So that is a great exchange that exists. Youth hold a great responsibility for overcoming future challenges, and elders hold a great responsibility for enabling them to rise to the occasion. One specific ask was to make sure that delegations are inclusive. There are youth, there are women in those delegations of every organization in every country. Moving on to the session about women as change makers. Women experience the effects of climate change differently than men, and they're also affected disproportionately. in part because they're also not only responsible for themselves, but for the health of children and the elderly. And they're also more subject to violence. Despite that, women have to be understood as agents of positive change, especially because water projects that involve women are found to be 6 to 7 times more effective. I'm just going to repeat that. If you have women involved in projects, they will be 6 to 7 times more effective. So there is no reason not to involve women to a greater extent. What we see through these discussions is that gender transformative policies exist, but they don't always transform into programmatic action. It's in concept, integrated into policies, but when we see action on the ground, it doesn't always happen. Two other things about the gender sessions that were really interesting is that we can see a feminization of the agricultural sector. So there are more women involved in farming globally, but that does not necessarily translate into more decision-making power for women in the agricultural sector. So we have to make sure to address that. And there's also activities around gender-responsive budgeting, where you actually allocate finance for gender in the planning process so that can actually happen rather than just looking at it as an afterthought. Finally, moving on to the indigenous knowledge, the main message that came out there is that indigenous knowledge and oral evidence needs to be acknowledged as science. There are centuries and millennia of knowledge that needs to be integrated, and formal and local data can be considered together to increase the resilience of vulnerable communities, in particular to reduce the impacts on food production, which we heard earlier, and health as well, because there are knock-on effects when you don't have food or water security. So the capacity of indigenous champions should also be fostered so that we can travel on the same journey together. And I think that that's applicable to all of us here today. The challenge remains that scaling local action and financing it still is an issue, because only 10% of climate finance actually arrives at the local level. So there are a number of commitments and proposals related to the UN 2023 Water Conference. There's a general consensus that we're all going to work towards contributions in different areas for the water action agenda. Obviously, we want to have women and youth and indigenous peoples there in force. But there were also 2 other specific proposals that have been circulating elsewhere, but there was a suggestion that water and climate should really be put seriously on the agenda of the UN Security Council, and also that a UN water envoy position be created, and that already has the support of 140 countries. So with that, I will hand it back.
Thank you so much, Danielle. And when I went to school more than 50 years ago, we said that repetition is the key. 6 to 7 times more successful. So repeat that. Last but not least, Kate Medlicott, but not Kate, but a colleague, an esteemed colleague from UNICEF. Okay, it's been changed.
Sorry to disappoint you. I'm not Kate, obviously. Well, allow me to start by saying Happy World Toilet Day for everyone. Today is World Toilet Day. And I cannot think of a better place to be here celebrating World Toilet Day. The risk of being last is that sometimes you might repeat yourself. I believe that on this occasion, it's good that we are repeating, and it's good that despite the often perception of working in silos, there are lots of commonalities, lots of synergies within the whole SDG 6. A second point and a second reflection is that usually walls divide, This wall is the evidence that we are united, maybe more than ever. There are over 50 logos in this wall, more than last year, and there are many more organizations that have contributed to make this water pavilion a reality. So I think this is a recognition that we are coming together. It's taking some time, maybe sometimes it's frustrating, maybe sometimes we are still working in silos, but I think we are on the right path. The overview for yesterday's thematic focus on climate resilient water supply, sanitation, and hygiene had these structures. We had the first session focused on community resilience, followed by a call of action on climate resilient sanitation, an area that I believe was maybe not very well presented and represented in last year's water pavilion, and I think it's good to see a lot of discussions around this topic, and precisely today. We had the launching of the 2022 edition of the Climate Resilient WASH framework, a framework that was developed back in 2015 by UNICEF and GWP. That sounds the Jurassic to me, speaking about climate resilience in the WASH sector. So I think having a new edition in 2022 is something that many partners will welcome, considering that now the framework is implemented in 57 countries, if I'm not mistaken. We had a very interesting high-level session with some inspiring words on political leadership, with a very good example from the government of India and the Jal Jeevan mission on how can you accelerate, even reach the SDG target for 2030 before 2030 in a big country, very challenging like India. We had a second launch on the climate resilient framework for businesses through the WASH for Work network. And we had a last session, but not least, on governance. Key messages. The first key message is on the importance of community resilience for WASH services across the world. This is a global issue. And if we look at the three pillars that I divide myself the sector: the water for people, water for the environment, and for the economic development. Community resilience, I think, goes across these three pillars. The second point, as I said earlier, the importance of sanitation, the need to have greater attention to sanitation issues in the nexus between climate and sanitation. I think some of the previous presenters already mentioned the importance of community participation, engagement of right holders, in particular vulnerable groups, children. The fourth point is on breaking the silos, working in partnerships. I think this is something that also has been already mentioned. So now I will not go in detail, but I think, once again, this wall, I think, is a good example of how can we work together. And I haven't had much time to move around the other pavilions, but my sense is that this might be the pavilion with the largest number of different organizations bringing together resources, time, money to make this a reality. So I think this is a recognition that sometimes we are, once again, criticized by working in silos, but I mean, I don't think other sectors can be as proud as we are, at least I am, of coming together. And then last but not least, the importance of political will. I'm very happy. I was just checking my WhatsApp. It seems that some things are moving in the background. I just heard that the loss and damage proposal for a fund seems that is moving forward. I just read it a few minutes ago. I haven't read the details, but it shows that when you have political will, things move forward. To be honest with you, I went to one of the negotiation meetings when I just landed at the beginning of the week, and I was quite depressed. But you see, when politicians, when leaders are on the room and make a strong commitment, things start to move. So I think this is a good reflection for my last slide. Looking ahead, UN23 conference is in 4 months and 4 days. I'm counting the days now. And COP28, we need to start thinking about COP28. So 2 key messages. We have to make sure that the entire SDG 6 is included in the water and climate theme at the UN Water 23. And the second very important key message is focusing on more political consensus and advocacy for COP28, including more visibility and influence in the negotiators. Last year was the very first year of the Water Pavilion. Many of us, we were just, starting to get used to this space. This year, I think there was much more kind of, engagement with the broader negotiations. I think we need to learn from this second year's experience and be more strategic for next year and to open up. This cannot be a closed space. This has to be open for everyone, everywhere. And allow me, I know that we are a bit over time, but allow me to thank again. I'm repeating myself, but I think it's important to say, I would like to thank, in particular, the Egyptian Ministry of Water, Water Resources and Irrigation, all the partners here in this panel, all the partners that are not here, the logos are not here, but have contributed to this. The production team, yesterday I forgot to thank the production team for making our lives less stressful, and for all of you to be here today. So thank you all, and hope to see you next year.
Thank you so much for that very personal and sharing your thoughts and feelings, because I think that's also necessary. So before we move on, I would like to do something a little bit different. We have had about 9 days within an hour, or less than an hour. It's a rapid speed. So to make this a little bit personal, because we are all persons here and individuals, I would like to ask 3 of you who has been here a question. And I want you to just, within a minute, give us an observation from the COP time you've had here in Sharm el-Sheikh. So I would like to start with Joma, who is no longer here. So we move on to Ingrid. Can you please, with your normal passion. Take mine.
Speak more slowly. So the question being, what is my...
An observation, a personal observation from the COP, the time you've been here, when you've been walking around, been in this pavilion, but also in other sceneries,
Yeah.
and a personal observation, what you've seen.
Sure. Well, so we've heard a lot about kind of what's been going on in the pavilion, so maybe I'll speak a little bit more about what's going on outside of the pavilion space, because this is a huge, for those of you who are joining online and maybe weren't able to be here in person, we are in a very cavernous space, but I have also been sitting in on some of the consultations and negotiations that have been going on, and I would say, I will always be an optimist. You have to be to do this kind of work, so I'm remaining optimistic, but I would say it's definitely challenging this year, especially because this is supposed to be the COP of implementation, and that is what we've been hearing a lot about. There is room for optimism. We did hear this morning, especially on loss and damage, that there will hopefully be a resolution on that. Perhaps not a formal mechanism. We're still not sure, at least not yet. But that is really good news. And so I'm very hopeful that that is something that comes out, because we have all of these great ideas, that we've heard here and that are being presented in all of the other pavilions. But countries, especially developing countries and those frontline communities, really need actual support for that. And so I'm hopeful that that is something that will come through, but these negotiations have really been a challenge, so.
Thank you. And next in line, I was thinking about you, Eric. Would you please, within a minute, and think about the interpreters?
Maybe I'll make it in less than a minute. I've been here for roughly 5 days. I came in on Monday, so been up and about in the pavilions. WWF, we have a Panda Pavilion in Area B, and I've also been visiting other pavilions by partners, Global Center on Adaptation, World Bank, all this. So I think for me, the challenge I'm taking home, and this is to non-state actors. I have this feeling, especially from yesterday, the World Bank is calling us and telling us, guys, put your act together. We have funding. You need to think big. Stop projectizing response to climate change. Make it big. So I don't know how big we can make it. We have partners here, some of which we are working with as WWF. I think going back home, this being Africa COP, where communities are hardest hit by the impacts of climate change, how big can we think? So for me, the question is, how big can we think as stakeholders, specifically non-state actors, but also create room, because the MDBs are catalyzing investments in things like nature-based solutions. Some of those sessions, the question I've been asking them is, where are the private sector? So thank you so much.
Thank you. Think bold, think big, and open your door. Thank you very much. Okay, and I actually would like to hear one more voice. And so I was thinking, Danielle, is she here? No? Yeah, there you are. If you could just give a minute's reflection, personal on.
Thank you.
An
Yeah.
observation or an experience.
Yeah, I just wanted to recall, because I've been here 2 weeks. It's a long haul, but I did want to recall that during the first week, there was, thanks to the Egyptian presidency, a heads of state roundtable dedicated to water security. And we have never seen that in the history of a COP. So I was very pleased to be able to bear witness to that, and the really high-level political engagement that was manifested through the support of the Egyptian presidency. So I wanted to say that. One other thing is that we have to really remember that the COP, we have to look at this as an ongoing process. So it's not that we just come here for 2 weeks and work like crazy and go away and wait for the next COP to happen. We have to continually work together to push these agendas forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. An applaud to the thematic day leaders. They've done a tremendous job filling the pavilion with energy and knowledge and a lot of passion and also action. So thank you all so much. Next, I would like to welcome you to Dr. Iman Sayed, my precious water pavilion colleague. And Ministry at Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, also the focal point for COP27 Water Pavilion and the president of the Cairo Water Week. Most welcome. And when we're doing this, we're going to have a little film before Dr. Iman starts, and that came in late, so we're moving pragmatically now. But please. And if you would like to, you can stand up now and stretch your legs a little bit, because we're sitting in a long time and we need some energy. Thank you so much, Dr. Iman. That was a lovely film to see a reflection flashing by. Having heard all the thematic day leaders as we have now and sharing their reflections and feedback, how would you summarize the Water Pavilion outcome?
Okay, first I'd like to thank you, Thomas, for giving me the opportunity to feedback about the Water Pavilion. And I would like to thank all our distinguished participants and guests who are following us about live stream or on physical here. I will start with thanks and acknowledge the effort created over 10 months. Actually, it's a long journey, but we reach our final destination. I guess we are about to gain the marathon. We have 5 countries led by Egypt, and we acknowledge our steering committee member from 5 countries and 5 international organizations, our main partner, FAO, who exerted a lot of effort in formulating the technical substance of the Water Pavilion, our implementing partner, SIWI. And here I would like to call for the good cooperation among the team from a governmental organization and also UN organization and institute. So we reach today with a very good outcomes. Also, our core partners, the 40 core partners who already give a message that we are unified the water sector, and we already started to have one voice, one message, and we are approaching to reach our mutual goal to have water in the climate agenda. Overview about statistical analysis up to today for the participant. We have 10 thematic days with 40 international organizations, 48 technical sessions, 5 social events, 11 high-level events with 450 speakers, with 40 high-level speakers present at the pavilion. Also, we have here about 3,500 physical participants passed by the pavilion, either for joining activities or for networking. They are covering the 5 continents. So we are more than coverage all the global world. We have 46,000 visitors for our website who already followed up and see our messages, see our agenda and updated news. We have launched and tackled about 20 report and initiative statements as well, 6,000 online participation, and 63 meeting for partnership. I guess those numbers reflect how it's pavilion. However, it's a small one, but with a great impact and with a great influence. Back again to a very important sign, the start of the pavilion, which is a high-level official opening, attended by the President of Tajikistan, the Prime Minister of Egypt, the Prime Minister from Netherlands, 3 countries among the steering committee, and also the Minister of Water Resources, Dr. Hani Swelam, which give us encourage to participate actively in the activities. I will not repeat what you already mentioned in your day-to-day reporting, but I would like to highlight we have already very important reports and initiatives already launched to cover most of countries and most of water issues. ASEAN and Pacific Water Resilience Initiative, African Cities Water Adaptation Fund, and also call for action for power for wetlands. Just example of what is important mentioned and already launched during the pavilion, water for all SDGs application, resilience water accelerator, soft launch of the international panel on deltas and coastal areas, and the 22 edition of the strategic framework of WASH climate resilience development. Already you mentioned long list of key messages to be delivered to the community, either for the climate or water community, but we will have a priority list and we will work together to have a short version of the activities and messages to be delivered to UN report. And I'm happy to inform you that we will not stop today, but we will work together in the future to have a full report documenting the outcome from the Water Pavilion to be presented in the New York Conference 2023. So let me just highlight few important messages, which is highlight of natural-based solution to improve water supply and ensure clean water, transboundary and intersectorial cooperation, innovation and modernization of water sector. Water should be acknowledged as a key to achieve all SDGs. Land and water governance should be more inclusive and adaptable. Agriculture support and investment should be redirected toward the social and environmental gains, accelerating action for early warning for all, and also enhancing collective actions for water-related disaster risk reduction. And also we work for the nexus between energy, food, and ecosystem water, which is a powerful concept to address interrelated natural global resources system needed to achieve social, economic, and environmental goals. Science-based tools should be included in all our messages. Urban resilience depends on multi-stakeholder process, and also the young and inclusion of water process. Limiting global warming and protecting biodiversity are a supportive goal. By this, I reached my sorry, I forgot to move the screen, but I'd like to hope to see all of you in COP28 and also in New York in March. Before my closing remarks, I'd like to ask Mr. Thomas to feedback about the process. We already had a long time in the process. I don't like to forget Jennifer, the woman who started this effort. And she already started networking, and she informed us how the pavilion could be. We already exerted a lot of effort together. At the beginning, it was too tough. It wasn't easy at all to work with a country from North. But at the end, we did it. We now have a good experience how we can deal with our colleague in other environment, other cultures. So the floor is yours, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a surprise. I'm not prepared. But thank you so much, Dr. Iman. I've just reflected on the week I've been here, but also the months and hours we've all put into to make this happen. The team. Now my eyes get a bit teary because it's quite emotional. It's been a road with many bumps and many twists and many turns. And yes, we have had cultural adjustments to make. But I think it's a good example of how we need to approach what we actually been talking in this pavilion and in so many other pavilions as well. We need to listen. We need to have an inclusive view on things, and we need to work together and break barriers. And by breaking barriers and breaking barriers by also seeing behind cultural differences. So I think in a way I see what we eventually ended up here with you on here in the audience, but also you online. We have interpreters who work constantly to make sure that more than us who are here and listen in English can actually follow and listen in and take part of what we're talking about and take part in the discussions and hopefully bring that further on where they are. So success, I would say, but it's not over. And there's a saying that some great leaders have used, that this is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. It's the end of the beginning. So let's start now and continue. So thank you so much for all the good and fantastic collaboration and learnings on the way.
Thank you. Just I'd like to ask you to keep your eyes on the Water Pavilion website. We will update all the link to all sessions and also information in future. All reporting we are gonna to prepare, we will be published on the website. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Iman. A big applause. And for all of you who are here now, you've been sitting for a long time. There is refreshments here, And we have a 30 minutes break where you can break barriers, find new friends, find new collaborations. So please, and we'll see you here and, at about 10:50. Is it? It is 11:20. 11:20, 30 minutes. Please, coffee, water, and refreshments. Thank you. Okay, we have had a refreshing moment with some snacks and goodies, and we are now to listen and gain insights from a very interesting panel. But I would like, before that, I would like to welcome you all to Mohammed Al-Hamdi, Senior Land and Water Officer at Food and Agriculture Organization. And you, Mohammed, you will moderate our esteemed panel. So most welcome on stage, and I'll hand over the mic. And for the panel, just as you know, before you leave the panel, we want to take some photos. So stay in your seats.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, I would like to welcome all of you to the Resolution Day, the high-level session panel that concludes the 9 thematic days with a lot of energy that has taken place. When we were designing the program, we thought that the risk we run into the last day with not so many people attending, but surprisingly, we do have a lot of presence. That shows commitment from the partners. It has been said, 40 partners engaging in this and many more. So we're happy, and it's also quieter in the other pavilions, so we can listen to each other more clearly. Yes, today we will have a panel session. We will have a high-level panel session, and I'm honored to be moderating this session. As Thomas said, my name is Mohammed Al-Hamdi. I work as the Senior Land and Water Officer at the FAO Regional Office for the Near East and North Africa. So, yes, okay, thank you. So I would like to call upon our panelists to take the stage, Dr. Hakim, and if His Excellency the Minister, Your Excellencies, yeah, and I'll introduce you. Dr. Ayman, do we have Karim with us? Oh. Yeah, so we're really pleased and honored to have the high-level panel, and of course, being here at the last day shows the commitment from their side as well. So I would like to welcome our panelists. We have His Excellency Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation, Dr. Hani Swalem, and we have Her Excellency, His Excellency, the FAO Resident Director General, Assistant Director General and Regional Representative of the Near East and North Africa region, Dr. Abdel Hakim Al-Wa'ir. And we also have Her Excellency, the Deputy Director General of the World Meteorological Organization, Dr. Elena Manankova. And we also have a representative from Indigenous People and Gender, Miss Lucy Molenki. So welcome all of you to this session. And I'll start with a question to His Excellency the Minister. Before you joined us, since 9 o'clock, we've been presenting the messages that are coming from the different thematic days. These messages are well thought, they are inclusive, they have been developed in a consultative manner. Now the question is, how can we move from here to influence positioning of water at the global sustainable development agenda in general and the climate agenda in particular?
Good morning, everyone. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, also our audience online. And I would like to welcome you back here to the Water Pavilion. And to answer your point, I think first of all, we have to congratulate each other for what happened so far in this COP27. I think water has been positioned in, even not yet in the position that it deserves. I think we still have to do more, but at least it is clear that water now part of the climate action. There's still a lot to be done. We started some time ago, and when I say we, means all the partners together with us, the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, with all our partners and SIWI and FAO and many other organizations. I'm sorry, I can't count all of them, but we started by collaboration at different levels. It ended up last month by Cairo Water Week under the umbrella of Water at the Heart of Climate Action, which we prepared together with thousands of participants. What are our messages to the COP? We came up with the Cairo Call for Actions, which is going also to the UN Water Conference next year. And we came to the COP well prepared to position water at the heart of climate action with clear messages that were delivered throughout the previous 2 weeks here in this water pavilion, which is one of the achievements, to have a very strong water pavilion, very clear. And I heard from everyone here that I met about the way how water was presented here in this pavilion. We had Water Day for the first time ever in the COPs on the 14th of November. And I think we have seen water discussed in all the corners of the blue zone and even the green zone. We had launched also the Aware Initiative Action for Water Adaptation and Resilience, which has been received very well from many organizations. I still receive expression of interest from countries, organizations who are willing to be part of this. All of these happened already, but as I said, it's not enough. And to get to your point, I think we have to continue. This is the start. We cannot think that we reached our objective, because the negotiations are not yet ended. And we are very keen and hopeful to see water in the cover of the end results of the negotiations. And that's really what water deserves. And we are still requesting the negotiators to position water in the cover of these results. This is one point that should be happening, hopefully to be happening tomorrow. After that, we will take the results of this water pavilion and all the discussions to the UN Water Conference in March 2023. At the same time, we should be coordinating and collaborating with UAE in the COP28, in the preparation of COP28. I started yesterday some discussions, some soft start for what are the messages that we need to deliver with some other international partners, how water should continue to be stronger in the next COP. And yeah, we need all your help, we need your support to really continue and upscale the efforts that we did here in the next COP. We want in the next COP to continue to be a water COP. And here I would like to thank all our partners who worked very hard during the previous steering committee of the pavilion, and everyone who worked here to have this happening in the COP27, and hopefully we will gain some results in the coming days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Suwailem. And maybe after the question and answer, you would like to enlighten us on how to merge the two parallel tracks of negotiations and the technical discussions that are happening in the pavilion, not only in this one, but throughout. I'll move to the second panelist, His Excellency Dr. Al-Waer. With increasing water scarcity due to socio-economic drivers and climate change, the links between food security and water security is becoming more inseparable. Many view water in the agriculture sector to be inefficient, water use in agriculture to be inefficient, and as much more pressure will be expected to reallocate water to satisfy increasing demands from other sectors. Could you share with us your reflections on how should agriculture deal with less water while maintaining food production and food security?
Shukran, Muhammad. Excellency, Dr. Hani Suwailem. This is a great opportunity. It's always nice to come and celebrate some achievements at the end. So it's been a hard work throughout the year, although it intensifies over the last 2 weeks, but this is a result of real, continuous, day and night hard work since COP26 ended in Glasgow. And the colleagues, Dr. Iman and the team in the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, together with our team and all the partners, have done really a tremendous, marvelous work that we see the results of today. Now, I'll go back to your question and then maybe some suggestions on the way forward. Water for maintaining production or food productivity. Water is everything. We say water is everything. It's not only life, it's everything. The whole planet depends on water. If we do not have water, we cannot produce food. If we do not have water today, we cannot produce energy. And this is where the nexus comes in, the food, energy, water nexus. So water is the only component that we cannot do anything else without. And it has to be taken as such and push more for all the stakeholders to understand the importance of water. Of course, not any water. We still need a fresh, clean, sustainable water resources. And in order to do that, we need to review our policies of how do we use this most precious resource on earth in order to sustain life. And I'll go through some of the reflections from the FAO perspective of how do we, can we maintain our food productivity while still maintaining sustainable use of water resources. We need to focus more on increased water use efficiency and water productivity, which what we call more crop per drop. So that has to be really emphasized more. We also need to build the national capacities on water accounting systems. I think this is key because today we are really overusing the water based on the old regimes and the old systems and the inherited schemes, and we need to review that. Unless we really institutionalize the accounting systems at national levels, we may not be able to achieve much in terms of sustainable use of water. We also need to adopt climate smart agriculture. Now, this is on the user side. Downstream, we really need to see how we can push more for climate smart agriculture and bringing closer to more efficient use of water. That includes drought tolerant crops. So we need to think of what kind of crops that we are focusing on to produce our food, irrigation technology, farm level IT applications for more efficient water use. We also need to focus on enhanced cross-sectoral coordination. This is very important, and policy coherence, especially and particularly between water and agriculture sectors. We have in most of our countries, these are separate sectors, and unless there is close policy coherence, agriculture still remains the major user sector of water resources, and they need to have a closer coordination with the water sector. Increase the use of non-conventional water resources, and that's very important. That includes treated wastewater and increase investment on research on desalination to reduce the production costs. Higher investment in research on biosaline agriculture and the use of marginal lands. This is very important, especially in our region here. There are more and more lands that become more and more saline, and instead of abandoning them and not being able to produce food out of them, we need to intensify our research on the biosaline side. We need to strengthen also the science policy interface to develop evidence-based policies and incorporate virtual water within total water budget. Trade in food is trade in water. We know that when you ship crops, especially those that are water intensive, you're actually shipping water. And this is where the policy coherence between agriculture, investment, trade, and water sectors becomes essential. And it's key for food security in water scarce regions. We also need to review the diet composition, aiming to enhance nutrition and lower water footprint. Now, this brings another sector. When we talk about diet nutrition, we need to bring the health sector. Usually it's the health sector who is in charge of that nutrition and diet. So unless we try to change the manners and the cultures of how do we consume food, so we focus on food that's healthy and less water consuming and become more aware of the water scarcity at the public level, we will continue to consume large resources of water, and that need to be addressed at the community level. Higher intra-regional cooperation is extremely important. I've just come from Jordan on the first day of COP, Jordan and Saudi Arabia, and they look at now a dimension of how the region trade becomes a source of food security and water security. So if I cannot grow crops that are water intensive on my land, how can I develop a cooperation agreement with neighboring countries that we grow it at a less cost and where water is less scarce? I would say higher stakeholder involvement of all the stakeholders, and I'm glad to see the indigenous communities with us here today. And in some areas, agriculture may become unfeasible and need to be phased out. And we need to move towards a less water-intensive economy. I don't know how much time we'll have later, but I don't want to drop this. On the water pavilion, I would wish Your Excellency, Minister Hani, that we don't make this a spike that happens once in COP27. I think the momentum that is created by your leadership and the whole partnership that you gathered with 40 international institutions should not be lost. This is a time where you're bringing water right at the forefront of the agenda on climate. We need to make sure that this is pushed, and I'm suggesting one way. One, FAO has established the Interregional Water Scarcity Platform. It's a platform that brings all the people to discuss, and we may offer this. This is a ready one. It's connected to the whole world, and it's very well used. We may offer to make the water pavilion, instead of a place that is only established for 2 weeks during COPs, to become a real platform for dialogue of the stakeholders to push for this agenda. We need one special, very important assignment from you as a minister leader representing the presidency in the water sector, is to make sure the baton is handed over to the next presidency. And instead of starting all over again, build on what you have already achieved in terms of making the water pavilion a substantive, permanent structure within COPs that gathers the same 40, plus those who are more interested to join, and you build that snowball effect as you move onwards. And you want to make sure you push this yourself as the initiator, but the next water minister of the next presidency will carry on, and so on and so forth. This way we can make sure that the agenda is pursued and is not lost. Because what we do with great efforts is that it's a spike, the event is finished, and then someone else comes with the new ideas, start all over again, and we lost all the efforts that was done. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hakim. We'll move to Dr. Elena, and we'll move to the data challenge. So closing the data gap is essential to inform decision-making and policy development for integrated water management. The challenges facing water services and management are exacerbated by climate change. Now, how can new technologies benefit the climate adaptation agenda in general and the vulnerable communities in particular to maintain and improve livelihoods?
Shukran, Mohammed. Большое спасибо. Like previous speakers, Honorable Minister and dear colleagues here, I really have lots to say about the pavilion itself, and thanks for the question. I will turn to it. Of course, data issue for WMO is a core, but I cannot not say things which are sitting in my heart right now. And it's great that WMO was opening this pavilion, and it's also great that I'm closing this pavilion, which is not without regret, because this is my 16th COP, and I've seen many water pavilions before, and the UN water pavilions. But what happened here and now in this place, thanks to outstanding leadership of Egyptian presidency, this space supported, backed their lead in the water agenda in COP. It was not just a multi-stakeholder collective of good, like-minded people. We all aligned, all agencies and countries participate in this pavilion to help presidency to bring the water agenda into negotiations and into political aspects. And many of us working in this pavilion, what I heard from the morning sessions, actually, it's not that just call, let's do something. You have already hands-on different negotiation streams. You already work behind the scenes and with negotiators and with your agencies to make it happen. So the results of this pavilion cumulatively is lots more than just a place to exchange information. It's a vehicle to bring all these different perspectives into the proper decision processes. About the presidency, I cannot say how admiring am I the presidency overall, and especially for having water in the center of COP. That's more than amazing. It was long needed. It was eagerly demanded for many years, and especially the outstanding stellar leadership of the Ministry of Water and Irrigation and Honorable Minister, whom I had pleasure to interact several times during this COP. The way how they did it and the way how they put it into the processes was not just well accepted. It was awaited, and everyone said, yes, of course, that's it, that's what we need to do. I don't tell you how suffer we are from releasing the figures, how many people suffer, how many people lose their lives, how many people are displaced because of water stress. So this continues to be the case, but with our partnership, I see the light in the end of the tunnel, that the things will get better. Egypt and the countries who sponsor this pavilion, the Netherlands, the Tajikistan, the UK, and Germany, they are all leaders of the Water and Climate Coalition, which was formed recently. They have been already very much outspoken in the political world about the water aspects. And because they joined together, their voice became louder. They started speaking as one. And I don't even want to say we hope. I think we believe. I see that other leaders will lead the example of Egypt and others and add their voices. I know no one country which would not say we don't suffer from water problems. Everyone does. And when we when we will have a chorus of voices from other countries, this will be unavoidable, that the water will be key in the COP processes. We also saw launching on this pavilion the important statement of those leaders, water and climate leaders, and the great thing they have done. They said that water is not just a problem; it is a way for solution. It is solution on itself. Water can help in mitigation. Definitely, good water management can help in mitigation. Water can help in resilience if we manage properly the water resources, hydrology, forecasting, and all dear to WMO data things. Then we save lives. And the third, water is a solution for energy security, for water security itself, for food security, like the previous speaker said. So there is no security which can be secured without water. No. So these three things turn the game. We're talking about solutions now. And this pavilion offered many of these solutions, which I heard this morning. About the going to COP28. So there have been achievements in this COP under Egyptian presidency, which is not just one decision in the passing years. It is something which the world will build on. The AWARE initiative, which we have launched together with Honorable Minister on Monday, Action for Water Adaptation and Resilience. What topic can be better? And he just said that several countries approached him to join the AWARE. And when we cross on the corridors, I keep saying awareness is raising. And it's not possible that countries will not join. Let United Arab Emirates to take it over and to go into Middle East with AWARE and beyond. It's very, very relevant to that region too. I believe that's it's a very winning exercise for them to pick. We will do our best to help them to position this properly related their priorities and key challenges. And we have altogether issued something absolutely outstanding, early warning for all. And journalists keep asking me all the time how many countries now subscribe to this initiative. And I say all of them, and they have subscribed yesterday. They were just waiting this to happen. And the water adaptation and resilience is core part of this initiative as well. So I believe that COP28 doesn't have any chance not to take water agenda, because it will not be decision of the future presidency. It will be inherited. It will be a legacy of this presidency. And finally, we are also very much involved, of course, in the preparation of water conference next spring. And we have a privilege to lead one of the working streams, which is about, of course, data, very much related to data. WMO is the one who can make it happen, because we cannot afford any more situation when we don't know where water is, we don't know where water goes, and when we don't know what the resources will be. So we will create global information water system. It will be multidisciplinary. We will need all our partners on board, and we work together with them. We will create global water report, and we will create transparent global water portal. So without this, all our efforts would remain in words, and we want them to remain in actions in the countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elena. Yes, it would be really not complete or a shame if water is not highlighted in a COP that is happening in Egypt. Water in this region is life. I know water is important everywhere, but in Glasgow, where you have the lakes, etc., so you don't see it, you don't feel it. Here in this region, you see the scarcity of water, and it's only appropriate that we highlight it here. One of the messages, the key message, one of the first messages on the thematic day 8 on inclusion was nothing about us, nothing about us without us. So including indigenous people, youth, gender has been a thematic day full of engagement, substance, and we're honored to have Ms. Lucy with us. So I'll give you the floor to maybe answer the question and maybe elaborate. You have high UN representatives, and you also have the minister. So what do indigenous people and would like to convey messages? So the specific message goes like this. Within the quest to develop new and innovative technologies, we tend to forget that indigenous knowledge on water in terms of technical solutions and water management systems are effective and sustainable. How do you see the complementarity between indigenous knowledge and the new technologies to address the challenges of climate change? This is the question, and you have also the floor to say your messages.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Your Excellencies, Minister, thank you very much for the invitation here. And really, the question that you've asked is very, very important, because indigenous peoples and local communities, and also the women and youth, look water as a holy, it's something holy, and it's very important in our lives. Before I came here, I'm from Kenya, and before I came to the COP to register, I went to the Habiba community in Nweba, in the eastern south of Sinai. And why did I go there? Because I really wanted to see some of the communities and see how they survive in the desert, and how they also, try to manage their own life. And I was very happy, like when you said water is everything, because for them, here we are in the desert, how do we manage and how do we have our life go on? Because we need water for everything. And I don't want to repeat on what had already been discussed here in the last 2 weeks, because today we had very, very important reports, and they indicated and said how important water is and all the recommendations that are going to be taken forward. Up in Habiba community, in Nweba, we met the Bedouin community, and within there, they have really made the desert a green place. They have food, they have, vegetables, and you go there, they have even planted trees, so you can find a warm place that you can sit and be happy. And this is simply because they had water. And this particular water, they have tried as much as possible to learn and to work with partners to be able to make it better. And as you say, they were also using the traditional knowledge. And that traditional knowledge, they're looking with it with science. Because with the salination that you had mentioned about the water being salty and it can't grow some vegetables, people cannot drink it. But they are doing their best to look at the technology also, that they can be able to purify that water. So it's very important that we look at those particular issues at the same time. It's important to have the recommendations that were made, and this is something that we as indigenous people will look ahead and see, like it's very, very important to make sure that in all the activities that are being made in policy decisions and the discussions of issues of water. There should be, the communities have to be included, women and youth, so that they can also be able to contribute. They can be able to bring that knowledge they have. For example, for years without the technology, they knew how to purify the water by using vegetation within wherever they are. So these are some of the things that they can share with science. I think when we look at the issues of biodiversity and the research that has been done by ICBES and other scientists, they have shown that indigenous people's land, the biodiversity is well protected. And that includes the forests, it includes all other vegetation, wetlands, and oceans and everything. And this is why it's important to work with the indigenous people also to be able to see how they have been protecting these particular issues. There were quite some very important recommendations this morning. And one of them was about inclusiveness. And this is what we want to carry forward to the next level, from here to the next COP and also to the water conference. And not only during the conference or during the other meetings, but it's something that has to be continuous. And I like the way the other presenters have said that it's something that we need to build on, to have something we can be able to continue. Because one of the policies, when the policies are made, Mr. Minister, most of the time, people think about people in the cities and towns. They don't think about the remote areas. And that's where there is a lot of, there are communities who are living there. And if you leave anyone behind, no one will ever achieve the goals. We will not achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, even by 2030. The same time, because of lack of the water, and that's a lot of reason why FAO and the rest are also, and other agencies that are here are really making sure that indigenous peoples are involved, because that's where most of the issues of security are really very tough. Because if pastoralists don't get water for their livestock, and there is competition for that, there is always conflict. If we have to avoid that, we have to see on what to do. And we also have to see how do we try as much as possible to look and see if there is water. How do we help the communities to get this water? How do we help them to get safe water for whatever they need? So as we look forward, let's look forward with a positive mind, with a human rights approach, to make sure that we are looking at issues that we can include everybody and have an inclusive way. We need a political will. As governments who are here, Minister, you are here, and others who are here, we need a political will to know that communities are very crucial in our countries. We cannot do away with them. Women carry the heaviest burden. They are the ones who go very long hours to look for water, and many of them can testify that, and I'm sure they have testified that. So we need to really make sure that these issues are very, very, taken into consideration. I'm proud to be from Africa, and I'm proud to be here in Egypt, because it has really made us see what potential we have in Africa, what success we can make in Africa. And to us, we continue supporting as indigenous people. We continue working with the different, parties to the Convention on the UNFCCC, and also for the coming Rio conferences like the Convention on Biological Diversity, because it's also important for us at this particular time, and UNCCD. And I think it's something that we can, look at it and see that the nexus of water is needed everywhere, and it's needed by everyone, and it's needed by every other way that we have to continue working our journey towards success in future. So it's very important that we have that. And as indigenous people and local communities, we continue working together. Already we have very many networks on water, and we'll continue working to make it a success and to be able to work in partnership with all the partners that are listed, and also in our own countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lucy, for this. And I can tell you, having worked on some of those systems, many of the indigenous knowledge and management systems, water, terracing, etc., they are equitable, they are sustainable. And the message is, please, let's abide by, leave no one behind. That's the message, and the right-based approach. We keep saying this, but somehow on the ground, implementation is not up to to the level that we want. I would like to open maybe for 2 or 3 questions from the audience, if there is any. So no questions. Then I'll give the floor. There is.
Thank you. My name is Muhammad Az, and I'm a journalist. My question is to Minister Dr. Swalem. And we wanted to know about the projects, the adaptation project that Egypt has proposed during the COP, and to what extent have they been financed, and what are the needs left so far? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the point you raised. As I mentioned, we have launched the AWARE Initiative Actions for Water Adaptation and Resilience, and this was prepared originally in collaboration with the WMO and other partners, and it went through a long process of consultation with international partners and representatives of different countries. And we reached 5 thematic areas that needs the focus in the coming period. And also we started to discuss with different organizations, specific projects, specific actions on the ground. We have focus on Africa. We have focus on adaptation, but not exclusively Africa. So we are open for the Arab countries, for the Middle East, for the Mediterranean countries, any other country that want to join. And we all need help in terms of adaptation and also mitigation. Africa needs focus on adaptation. We are presenting the Pan-Africa Capacity Building Center or hub to be established in Africa. We are willing to host it. In Egypt, we are willing to provide the infrastructure needed for that. It's a huge infrastructure that we can offer for hosting this hub, but also opening for any node to be in any other country to be connected to this hub. So that's one tangible project that we want to start to build the capacity of Africans to adapt to climate change in areas overlapping with water, like coastal protection, groundwater, irrigation, food production, adaptation to drought and flood. So all of these are areas that we can cover in this African hub for climate adaptation. We are calling for mobilizing funding for these ideas. We are working together with partners. We will continue working till the end of this year to set the action plan and the governance of this initiative. And then from the end of this year till the UN conference, I think we will be having clear leaders and coordinators for each thematic area or each work stream. And then we go to the UN conference with clear actions, with responsibilities, targets, indicators for the implementation. And hopefully till then we will have mobilized a bit of funding for the implementation on the ground. So this is a kind of roadmap. I think we have also time plan for this roadmap with deadlines that we should achieve. And hopefully we will take this to the next COP so that the UAE can continue and build on AWARE initiative for the next phase after the COP28. So that's all what I can say about the actions on the ground. Thank you.
Can I compliment just one word? I'd like to compliment Minister was not, we don't know yet how much really the initiative will cost on its own, but we know that every dollar of investment in similar systems in hydrometeorology or climate resilience pays back from 10 to 50, depending on the country. If each work stream which will be developed within this initiative will save lots of wasted resources due to damage which would be without this initiative. And the Pan-African Center is must to action very quickly. And this initiative is already part of Global Early Warning for All plan, where investment is required 3 billion, which is 6% of adaptation resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Maybe I'll give the floor for final reflections from the panel before we close. So I'll start with Dr. Hakim and then we'll go.
Shukran, Muhammad. Well, we can carry on reflection because the subject is huge, the requirements is, but maybe some of the focus points. One, I would like to commend Ms. Lucy for promoting and building awareness on the need to leave no one behind, especially the indigenous communities. I happened to be a director at the African Union for some time, and I was looking at the indigenous knowledge under science and technology. And I think, Lena, this is for you on the early warning systems that we try to develop. We always tend to base it on pure data. Indigenous people are the best source of early warning. They will be able to know what's happening before it's happening because they've been there. They have the full sensors working on the ground, and they know when the rain is not coming or when it is not coming. That is one. They're also very important to learn from in terms of building resilience. If they've managed to build the resilience throughout this time, we should not only see them as desperately needing a requirement for support and need, but we also should learn from them because they have massive, huge knowledge on how to build that resilience at the community level. And I think that's very important. I would stress the point of maybe gathering together under the leadership of the minister of all the parties that and partners that have built this momentum and think of how do we sustain these efforts. I will not talk about the thematic areas because it's these thematic areas that we will distill and make sure we pursue together at different arenas. But at least within COPs, we should have a plan of connecting the dots between the two different COPs, this COP and the upcoming COP and the previous one, to make sure that we don't lose on the momentum. We are very grateful from FAO to all the partners for joining us on this effort with the leadership of the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, and assure you that we'll continue co-working with WMO and all the colleagues to make sure that we pursue this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I think just to emphasize the importance that linkages between the different departments, the different ministries is very, very important. And again, I emphasize that as we walk along and as we continue creating awareness and building capacity, indigenous people, local communities, women and youth must be included. Thank you.
I think we said enough already, and I don't want to tell more. Just one thing. All I heard this morning and the previous events is still dominating with the trouble we have, and when the problem we try to manage. We need to be transformative. We absolutely need to think ahead, because messages get through when you offer decision support, risk-based decision support tools. So we need to think what will happen in the future and how to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you to all panelists, Your Excellency. I'll hand it over to Thomas so that we can close with your final remarks. Thank you very much for all your interventions, and please give a big applause of hand to the.
Thank you. Thank you so much, esteemed panel and Mr. Mohammed Al-Hamdi. We now have a little photo session that I'm reminded of. So if you stay there, everyone there's a cameraman, woman, person somewhere. Yeah, there you are. Most welcome to take the photo of the panel. So please, if you could stand up and align, that would be lovely. Okay, and now only the panel, so please. Okay, we're done. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. You are obliged to leave the scenery, except for one person that I would like to address a question to. Dear Mr. There we go.
Who wouldn't want that selfie? Dear Mr. Professor, or dear Professor Hani Savalam, the Water Minister, it's such a delight to have you here and a privilege. I have one question to do, and we've been doing summarizing now, but looking into, you were talking about the plans ahead, but also in relation to the formal processes that we're now going into. We have the World Water Conference next year and the coming COP. What are the takeaways that you see here that we can bring further on into those next events that will lead us further? So this is the stepping stone that we were aiming for action and results.
Yeah, I think the most important takeaway here is the momentum that we have, the momentum that we can see in every corner, and not only among the water professionals, experts, scientists, youth, but among everyone who attended here in the blue zone and the green zone. I have seen momentum that I've never felt before towards water and towards the relation between water and climate. That's a big movement that we should take with us. We should not lose this. We should take it to the UN Water Conference, and we should take it from the UN Water Conference further to the COP28. Adaptation and mitigations are tied together, so it's not this or that, both of them, but we need to focus on adaptation in Africa, and Africa needs the help and needs the support. Water security and food security are very connected to Africa. We have seen in Europe the drought this year that was shocking to everyone in Europe. I have been in Germany for more than 25 years, and it was a shock for my colleagues and my friends and even my family. But we see drought every day in Africa. So it's not one time that's happening that is shocking to us. We see it every single day in Africa, and that needs help. We see it flood in some areas. We see it food insecurity, hunger, and all of these. Poverty is very connected to water in Africa. Without agriculture and without food production, you cannot end poverty in Africa. So the SDGs are very connected to the water sector and the water adaptation and climate action. And that what we should not forget. That what we should take together to the UN Water Conference. I hope that Egypt will be the co-host together with Slovenia for the climate and water and climate dialogue. I hope so that we can continue the momentum. That's not that we want to position ourselves. We just want to take these messages to the UN Water Conference. And that's why being the co-host for water and climate together with Slovenia will enable us to continue that momentum. And we take the messages from here. I thank everyone who contributed in this pavilion. I really hate mentioning names because there are too many organizations who worked with us. I really don't want to forget any one of them. Thanks to everyone who supported the AWARE initiative. There is still a lot to be done. The 6 work streams still need modifications and adaptation and editing and being more practical on the ground. We need to put actions. We need to have projects implemented everywhere that needs adaptation and mitigation. We need to mobilize funding. And as it was said, every dollar counts for the adaptation for the people and helping the people everywhere who are suffering for the impact of climate change. These messages and many others, and I would like to take to the UN conference and from the UN conference to the UAE COP28. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. So thank you. And we're going to do something that is very related to what we talk now. So thank you so much, Professor Hani. Karim, we're handing over to the youth, our future. So I would like to ask you, Karim, to come up and help us make a reflection and a bit of the closure. So please, Karim, welcome. And Karim is the representative for the Egypt youth.
Greetings, Your Excellencies and respectable audience. It has been really a great honor for me to be here with you and representing the youth. I want to say that I'm aware that I might look a bit exhausted, but aren't we all? It has been about 20 years, 20 days, not 20 years, but it feels like 20 years here in COP. It has been very exhausting, but also very hopeful. Although I really want to go back to my city, but at the same time, I feel that I really don't want to leave this festival. It feels like a festival of culture, and it feels like the World Cup of diplomacy as well. I feel that we have seen a lot of opportunities here in COP, and especially for the youth. The presidency have been empowering the youth throughout the COP, whether the thematic day of youth, whether youth envoy, the first ever, whether me being present here with you in the Water Youth Day, or even here at the closing of the Water Pavilion. So thank you very much for this. I would like to deliver a very quick message recapping on our work as youth and our message, because it has been really a historical moment. So I believe that when it comes to the water problem specifically, it's a problem that must be inclusive. It's not a plus to be inclusive, it must, because it affects all of us, and especially the younger generations. But I believe that if we want to include the younger generations in the discussions and the decision making, there is two challenges. One for the older generation and the other for the younger generation. The older generation needs to acknowledge that youth can add a new perspective to the table, that they got the enough potential and will to make the change that is needed, and that they got the right to be there because they are the most affected age group. But also at the same time, I believe that the youth, and this is, I think, something that we don't talk about a lot, but I will try to be a little bit humble and talk about it, because the youth might be too confident, but I think we need to be humble a little bit, because we lack some knowledge, we lack some experience, and we need to be aware of that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we are less and that we don't qualify to sit at the decision-making table. We have been making great changes, and I believe that these are the main two challenges for us. I'm not sure if that before the closing day, you were aware of the Global Youth Statement, but I believe that it is really a historical moment. I've been talking to the UN body of youth in Yungu, and they were really, really happy that I got to present the Global Youth Statement at the closing of the Water Day in front of the world leaders. The Global Youth Statement, in a nutshell, it's a statement that has been written by the world youth to represent our demands in the climate change file in every aspect, whether it's water, energy, gender, all of the files. So I was able to present it in front of the world leaders, in front of the respected ministers, and I saw them taking notes of it, and that was a huge step. It was fine. Our demands were finally on the table, and I really hope that this is not the final point or final stop. I hope that we keep building on that, not just that we delivered our statements, we want to see them implemented. We want to see youth engaged in the discussions and in implementing these files. Also, I feel that the water file is very specific. As Dr. Hani was saying right now, whether it's Europe, they had a drought, a very severe drought once in 25 years. We have it every day here in Africa. So we can't have a global target for water. We need a specified target for each region. And also there's something that I believe personally, that my main belief that the water and the climate crisis will not be solved only by goodwill. We can be coming here and making promises and saying that we're gonna be implementing next year, hopefully. And if the economic situation isn't so good, we will not fulfill our promises. No, we as human natures, we don't rely on the goodwill for people for not to steal or for not to kill. There is laws for that, and there must be laws for water security for everyone. SDG Goal 6 will not be implemented without very clear laws for countries that must be followed. Other than that, I don't think that people will, because why is it necessary? Because this is a life and death situation. Water is necessary for all of us. Finally, I want to say that when we are talking about policy and talking about initiatives, definitely the AWARE initiative is a huge step towards that, and I congratulate the Egyptian presidency and Dr. Hani and all the people that work on it for making this huge step. But I do really believe that we need to build on it. We need to make it specific for each region. And finally, I would like, from the bottom of my heart, from what I've seen, from not just because I'm an Egyptian, but I've really seen this from all of my colleagues from all over the world, how happy they are about this COP, I would like not to call it only the COP of implementation, but also the COP of implementation and inclusivity, because I've been seeing all the age group represented, all genders represented, all people from all over the world. So it's been really a great honor to present to you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you all.
That's another selfie you want to have. So thank you very much. Professor Hani, thank you very much. And Karim, thank you very much for rounding this up. So I heard one thing I just want to end up with. In the beginning of COP, I went to a session and they were talking about cramping your fist and fight and everything. But I would like everyone instead to open their hands, because it's what we're talking about. We're talking about collaborations. So we open our hands instead of clenching it. And we say that we promise that we will make some difference. So collective action by working together, that's what we've been talking about here. And let's showcase what we're talking about as well. So thank you everyone for listening in, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all on the line. Thank you all that has been part of this, interpreters behind the scenes, all partners that have been engaged, involved and made this happen, and all the team that we were together, even though we sometimes had some small cultural variations.
Yeah, thank everyone again, but I also would like to thank my team. My team who have been working day and night for a very long time. Dr. Iman, thank you very much for making it possible here. And the coordination, my office, Mustafa, Abdurrahim, Muhammad and Ahmed and everyone, the drivers and the people behind the scene and everyone who was supporting us, the security and everyone, thank you very much. Thank you all, and thank you all for your being here. We will see you, inshallah, in the UN conference in March 2023, but keep the momentum till we meet again in the COP28. Thank you very much. Enjoy and safe back trip home.
Group photo.
I start with you, Hank. You have been at many COPs before. How would you say that this COP as a whole has reflected the COP presidency's mission to put water at the heart of climate action?
We're here in Sharm el-Sheikh at COP27 under the leadership of the government of Egypt, and never before has water played such a prominent role in a climate COP. And that did not come from nothing. Egypt prepared very well. We were in Cairo a month ago, the Cairo Water Week, that was positioned in the context of putting water at the heart of climate action. And the Cairo outcome document was named From Cairo Towards the UN2023 Water Conference. Egypt has put its full weight behind positioning water at this COP with the second water pavilion after the one in Glasgow last year and the first ever water day at the COP here. Positioning water at the heart of climate action is of critical importance, both for mitigation, our best carbon sinks with wetlands, oceans and rivers, but also wastewater treatment plants, ensuring that we have clean energy, reduce water use and reuse it, and take care of our water resources, with climate change being a big driver for water scarcity, and of course adaptation, preferably locally led, with capacity from the communities, as well as private sector and businesses, governments and across. So yes, water at this COP has never been so prominent on the climate agenda as this year.
How do you see the water pavilion with its water partners and high quality sessions has contributed at the whole COP27?
Yeah, water and climate are too much interrelated. Water resources are very vulnerable to the impacts of the climate change. More than 80% of the impacts of climate change to our economies, to our societies, occur through the water resources. But as Hank mentioned, at the same time, water resources play an important role for climate adaptation, mitigation, and achieving climate resiliency. Yes. One of the main goals of the Water Pavilion basically was address this issue and to raise the awareness of the world community about this aspect. The water should be at the center of the climate action. And I think that having the many sessions in the Water Pavilion attended by hundreds of participants. Every day we had, I think, that 5 to 6 sessions and attended by hundreds of people, including the high-ranking officials, heads of states, heads of the government, ministers, and other dignitaries, as well as the professionals. And the clear message from these sessions, I think we can say that we achieved this goal. Really, in this COP, the Water Pavilion could strengthen the role of water and put it again in the climate agenda. So I think that participation of the President of Tajikistan, Prime Ministers of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Egypt, and their very inspiring speeches at the opening of the Water Pavilion could make a good start for the Water Pavilion, for the discussion within the Water Pavilion. And definitely, I think that the messages were very clear from the heads of states and heads of the government and all participants that we have to mobilize our actions and to address water and climate issues in integrated manner. I think another mission of the Water Pavilion was the raising the awareness about the UN 2023 conference and to make the great contribution to this historical event next year in New York. And I think having the many commitments around the water and climate aspects in Water Pavilion and throughout the COP, we can say that really Water Pavilion could make a great contribution to the success of COP27.
Thank you. And the last question is, what do you think anyone who has been in the Water Pavilion and are really engaged in the water quality, climate and water nexus, what do you think they should focus on after this COP for a for a successful UN water conference next year. And maybe also to the next COP, because there's a lot of interest to contribute. And what do you recommend them to do before water? Yeah.
We saw, I think, in this COP that we see it in reality, that water, as Sultan already said, plays such a critical role. The impacts of climate change come at us through water, too much, too little, pollution across the world. We deplete our aquifers, our groundwater resources with climate change. This is only exacerbated more. And at the same time, water is the forgotten gem in the political debates and the economic debates when we think about climate. Investing in water trickles down across everything in society for better health, equity, resiliency, and sustainability. It helps us drive mitigation efforts as well as adaptation efforts. And these go from the community up, public and private partnerships, and across. And I think this is also the message from the Water Pavilion, the partnership between Tajikistan and the Netherlands, working together here in Egypt with the presidency of Egypt, looking at youth across generation, their voice, their provocation. That was all combined in how the Water Pavilion worked, but also how Water Day was positioned. We ended Water Day with high-ranking officials, ministers from Tajikistan, the Netherlands, and Egypt, but also with the voice of the youth and the president of the General Assembly. And it's exactly this whole of society approach that you see being presented at the pavilion that can help drive the solutions. And the solutions are the ones Sultan also mentioned, are the commitments. We need to know what to do. We need an alternative from the practices that we come from. We lag behind so massively when it comes to climate action, when it comes to SDG 6. So we really have to speed up like never before. And I think that is also what this COP spotlighted, and that will be of critical importance towards the UN 2023 Water Conference, is that speeding up and that scaling up in these coalitions from across the world is possible. The Netherlands and Tajikistan are committed to make UN 2023 Water Conference this massive success and a watershed moment of the world, like we try to say it. COP showed that with the coalitions and the partners presented, that is possible.
Yeah, indeed. I think that we have only more than 4 months ahead of us until the conference in March next year. And I think that the discussion we had in the COP27 will make a great contribution to the preparations towards 2023. So we are now in the active phase of preparations towards 2023. And the first, the outcomes of the COP could make a contribution to preparation of the concept notes of the interactive dialogues of the conference. And one of the themes of the interactive dialogues is water for climate and resilience, environment, of course, but the climate and resilience is very important. I think that the discussion and outcomes of COP27 will make a great contribution there. The second one, as Hank mentioned, is our actions and our commitments for actions. I think we have started basically the filling in the water action agenda and having the commitments of COP27, and mostly they are water related basically. I think that we will be able to fill in the water action agenda with new transformative, innovative, and game changers in commitments and actions which will make the real change to achieve the SDG 6 and other water related goals. And the third, I think, having the many political leaders in COP, we could reach out them through the different mechanisms, including the messages from the president of Tajikistan and the prime minister of the Netherlands, to let them understand that how their participation in the UN 2023 conference is important, but mostly also the importance of their strong commitments. So coming to New York with strong commitments to help the world community to achieve the water-related goals by 2020, 30, 2028, 2030, and beyond even. So I think that in terms of the next COP, I think we have to continue this process. We started basically our journey bringing water in the agenda of the climate debate last year in COP26, when the first water pavilion was organized. This year, the water pavilion was second one, but the water day was the first one in the history of the COP. And let's hope that in COP28, there will be something new and the water will be part of the negotiation for the climate, because the climate action is water actions. Again, the water plays an important role for achieving the climate resiliency, climate adaptation, and mitigation. And indeed, taking this opportunity, we would like to thank the government of Tajikistan, the government of the Netherlands, the government of the Germany and the UK, and especially the government of Egypt for partnering and organizing this water pavilion. We thank all the partners who make the great contribution to the success of water pavilion, which really made a great contribution also to the success of the COP27. And let's be together and make water on the top of the next, on the top agenda of the next COP in Dubai.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I start with you, Hank. You have been at many COPs before. How would you say that this COP as a whole has reflected the COP presidency's mission to put water at the heart of climate action?
We're here in Sharm el-Sheikh at COP27 under the leadership of the government of Egypt, and never before has water played such a prominent role in a climate COP. And that did not come from nothing. Egypt prepared very well. We were in Cairo a month ago, the Cairo Water Week, that was positioned in the context of putting water at the heart of climate action. And the Cairo outcome document was named From Cairo Towards the UN2023 Water Conference. Egypt has put its full weight behind positioning water at this COP, with the second water pavilion after the one in Glasgow last year, and the first ever water day at the COP here. Positioning water at the heart of climate action is of critical importance, both for mitigation, our best carbon sinks with wetlands, oceans and rivers, but also wastewater treatment plants, ensuring that we have clean energy, reduce water use and reuse it, and take care of our water resources, with climate change being a big driver for water scarcity. And of course, adaptation, preferably locally led, with capacity from the communities, as well as private sector and businesses, governments and across. So yes, water at this COP has never been so prominent on the climate agenda as this year.
How do you see the water pavilion with its 40 partners and high quality sessions has contributed at the whole COP27?
Yeah, water and climate are too much interrelated. Water resources are very vulnerable to the impacts of the climate change. More than 80% of the impacts of climate change to our economies, to our societies, occur through the water resources. But as Hank mentioned, at the same time, water resources play an important role for climate adaptation, mitigation, and achieving climate resiliency.
Yes.
One of the main goals of the water pavilion basically was address this issue and to raise the awareness of the world community about this aspect. The water should be at the center of the climate action. And I think that having the many sessions in the water pavilion attended by hundreds of participants. Every day we had, I think that 5 to 6 sessions, and attended by hundreds of people, including the high-ranking officials, heads of states, heads of the government, ministers, and other dignitaries, as well as the professionals. And the clear message from these sessions, I think we can say that we achieved this goal. Really, in this COP, the water pavilion could strengthen the role of water and put it again in the climate agenda. So I think that participation of the President of Tajikistan, Prime Ministers of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Egypt, and their very inspiring speeches at the opening of the water pavilion could make a good start for the water pavilion, for the discussion within the water pavilion. And definitely, I think that the messages were very clear from the heads of states and heads of the government and all participants that we have to mobilize our actions and to address water and climate issues in integrated manner. I think another mission of the Water Pavilion was the raising the awareness about the UN 2023 conference and to make the great contribution to this historical event next year in New York. And I think having the many commitments around the water and climate aspects in Water Pavilion and throughout the COP, we can say that really Water Pavilion could make a great contribution to the success of COP27.
Thank you. And the last question is, what do you think anyone who has been in the Water Pavilion and are really engaged in the water quality, climate, and water nexus, what do you think they should focus on after this COP for a successful UN water conference next year? And maybe also to the next COP, because a lot of interest to contribute. And what do you recommend them to do before water? Yeah.
We saw, I think, in this COP that we see it in reality, that water, as Sultan already said, plays such a critical role. The impacts of climate change come at us through water, too much, too little, pollution across the world. We deplete our aquifers, our groundwater resources with climate change. This is only exacerbated more. And at the same time, water is the forgotten gem in the political debates and the economic debates when we think about climate. Investing in water trickles down across everything in society for better health, equity, resiliency, and sustainability. It helps us drive mitigation efforts as well as adaptation efforts. And these go from the community up, public and private partnerships, and across. And I think this is also the message from the Water Pavilion, the partnership between Tajikistan and the Netherlands, working together here in Egypt with the presidency of Egypt, looking at youth across generation, their voice, their provocation. That was all combined in how the Water Pavilion worked, but also how Water Day was positioned. We ended Water Day with high-ranking officials, ministers from Tajikistan, the Netherlands, and Egypt, but also with the voice of the youth and the president of the General Assembly. And it's exactly this whole of society approach that you see being presented at the pavilion that can help drive the solutions. And the solutions are the ones Sultan also mentioned, are the commitments. We need to know what to do. We need an alternative from the practices that we come from. We lag behind so massively when it comes to climate action, when it comes to SDG 6. So we really have to speed up like never before. And I think that is also what this COP spotlighted, and that will be of critical importance towards the UN 2023 Water Conference, is that speeding up and that scaling up in these coalitions from across the world is possible. The Netherlands and Tajikistan are committed to make UN 2023 Water Conference this massive success and a watershed moment of the world, like we try to say it. COP showed that with the coalitions and the partners presented, that is possible.
Yeah, indeed. I think that we have only more than 4 months ahead of us until the conference in March next year. And I think that the discussion we had in the COP27 will make a great contribution to the preparations towards 2023. So we are now in the active phase of preparations towards 2023. And the first, the outcomes of the COP could make a contribution to preparation of the concept notes of the interactive dialogues of the conference. And one of the themes of the interactive dialogues is water for climate and resilience, environment, of course, but the climate and resilience is very important. I think that the discussion and outcomes of COP27 will make a great contribution there. The second one, as Hank mentioned, is our actions and our commitments for actions. I think we have started basically the filling in the water action agenda and having the commitments of COP27, and mostly they are water related basically. I think that we will be able to fill in the water action agenda with new transformative, innovative, and game changers in commitments and actions which will make the real change to achieve the SDG 6 and other water related goals. And the third, I think, having the many political leaders in COP, we could reach out them through the different mechanisms, including the messages from the president of Tajikistan and the prime minister of the Netherlands, to let them understand that how their participation in the UN 2023 conference is important, but mostly also the importance of their strong commitments. So coming to New York with strong commitments to help the world community to achieve the water-related goals by 2020, 30, 2028, 2030, and beyond even. So I think that in terms of the next COP, I think we have to continue this process. We started basically our journey bringing water in the agenda of the climate debate last year in COP26, when the first water pavilion was organized. This year, the water pavilion was second one, but the water day was the first one in the history of the COP. And let's hope that in COP28, there will be something new, and the water will be part of the negotiation for the climate, because the climate action is water actions. Again, the water plays an important role for achieving the climate resiliency, climate adaptation, and mitigation. And indeed, taking this opportunity, we would like to thank the government of Tajikistan, the government of the Netherlands, the government of the Germany and the UK, and especially the government of Egypt for partnering and organizing this water pavilion. We thank all the partners who make the great contribution to the success of water pavilion, which really made a great contribution also to the success of the COP27. And let's be together and make water on the top of the next, on the top agenda of the next COP in Dubai.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I start with you, Hank. You have been at many COPs before. How would you say that this COP as a whole has reflected the COP presidency's mission to put water at the heart of climate action?
We're here in Sharm el-Sheikh at COP27 under the leadership of the government of Egypt, and never before has water played such a prominent role in a climate COP. And that did not come from nothing. Egypt prepared very well. We were in Cairo a month ago, the Cairo Water Week, that was positioned in the context of putting water at the heart of climate action. And the Cairo outcome document was named From Cairo Towards the UN 2023 Water Conference. Egypt has put its full weight behind positioning water at this COP, with the second water pavilion after the one in Glasgow last year, and the first ever water day at the COP here. Positioning water at the heart of climate action is of critical importance, both for mitigation, our best carbon sinks with wetlands, oceans and rivers, but also wastewater treatment plants, ensuring that we have clean energy, reduce water use and reuse it, and take care of our water resources, with climate change being a big driver for water scarcity. And of course, adaptation, preferably locally led, with capacity from the communities, as well as private sector and businesses, governments and across. So yes, water at this COP has never been so prominent on the climate agenda as this year.
How do you see the water pavilion with its 40 partners and high quality sessions has contributed at the whole COP27?
Yeah, water and climate are too much interrelated. Water resources are very vulnerable to the impacts of the climate change. More than 80% of the impacts of climate change to our economies, to our societies, occur through the water resources. But as Hank mentioned, at the same time, water resources play an important role for climate adaptation, mitigation, and achieving climate resiliency. Yes. One of the main goals of the water pavilion basically was address this issue and to raise the awareness of the world community about this aspect. The water should be at the center of the climate action. And I think that having the many sessions in the water pavilion attended by hundreds of participants. Every day we had, I think that 5 to 6 sessions, and attended by hundreds of people, including the high-ranking officials, heads of states, heads of the government, ministers, and other dignitaries, as well as the professionals. And the clear message from these sessions, I think we can say that we achieved this goal. Really, in this COP, the water pavilion could strengthen the role of water and put it again in the climate agenda. So I think that participation of the President of Tajikistan, Prime Ministers of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Egypt, and their very inspiring speeches at the opening of the water pavilion could make a good start for the water pavilion, for the discussion within the water pavilion. And definitely, I think that the messages were very clear from the heads of states and heads of the government and all participants that we have to mobilize our actions and to address water and climate issues in integrated manner. I think another mission of the water pavilion was the raising the awareness about the UN 2023 conference and to make the great contribution to this historical event next year in New York. And I think having the many commitments around the water and climate aspects in Water Pavilion and throughout the COP, we can say that really Water Pavilion could make a great contribution to the success of COP27.
Thank you. And the last question is, what do you think anyone who has been in the water pavilion and are really engaged in the water quality, climate and water nexus, what do you think they should focus on after this COP for a successful UN water conference next year? And maybe also to the next COP, because there's a lot of interest to contribute. And what do you recommend them to do before water? Yeah.
We saw, I think, in this COP that we see it in reality, that water, as Sultan already said, plays such a critical role. The impacts of climate change come at us through water, too much, too little, pollution across the world. We deplete our aquifers, our groundwater resources with climate change. This is only exacerbated more. And at the same time, water is the forgotten gem in the political debates and the economic debates when we think about climate. Investing in water trickles down across everything in society for better health, equity, resiliency, and sustainability. It helps us drive mitigation efforts as well as adaptation efforts. And these go from the community up, public and private partnerships, and across. And I think this is also the message from the Water Pavilion, the partnership between Tajikistan and the Netherlands, working together here in Egypt with the presidency of Egypt, looking at youth across generation, their voice, their provocation. That was all combined in how the Water Pavilion worked, but also how Water Day was positioned. We ended Water Day with high-ranking officials, ministers from Tajikistan, the Netherlands, and Egypt, but also with the voice of the youth and the President of the General Assembly. And it's exactly this whole of society approach that you see being presented at the pavilion that can help drive the solutions. And the solutions are the ones Sultan also mentioned, are the commitments. We need to know what to do. We need an alternative from the practices that we come from. We lag behind so massively when it comes to climate action, when it comes to SDG 6. So we really have to speed up like never before. And I think that is also what this COP spotlighted, and that will be of critical importance towards the UN 2023 Water Conference, is that speeding up and that scaling up in these coalitions from across the world is possible. The Netherlands and Tajikistan are committed to make UN 2023 Water Conference this massive success and a watershed moment of the world, like we try to say it. COP showed that with the coalitions and the partners presented, that is possible.
Yeah, indeed. I think that we have only more than 4 months ahead of us until the conference in March next year. And I think that the discussion we had in the COP27 will make a great contribution to the preparations towards 2023. So we are now in the active phase of preparations towards 2023. And the first, the outcomes of the COP could make a contribution to preparation of the concept notes of the interactive dialogues of the conference. And one of the themes of the interactive dialogues is water for climate and resilience, environment, of course, but the climate and resilience is very important. I think that the discussion and outcomes of COP27 will make a great contribution there. The second one, as Hank mentioned, is our actions and our commitments for actions. I think we have started basically the filling in the water action agenda and having the commitments of COP27, and mostly they are water related basically. I think that we will be able to fill in the water action agenda with new transformative, innovative and game changers in commitments and actions which will make the real change to achieve the SDG 6 and other water related goals. And the third, I think, having the many political leaders in COP, we could reach out them through the different mechanisms, including the messages from the president of Tajikistan and the prime minister of the Netherlands, to let them understand that how their participation in the UN 2023 conference is important, but mostly also the importance of their strong commitments. So coming to New York with strong commitments to help the world community to achieve the water-related goals by 2020, 2028, 2030, and beyond even. So I think that in terms of the next COP, I think we have to continue this process. We started basically our journey bringing water in the agenda of the climate debate last year in COP26 when the first water pavilion was organized. This year the water pavilion was second one, but the water day was the first one in the history of the COP. And let's hope that in COP28 there will be something new and the water will be part of the negotiation for the climate, because climate action is water actions. Again, the water plays an important role for achieving the climate resiliency, climate adaptation, and mitigation. And indeed, taking this opportunity, we would like to thank the government of Tajikistan, the government of the Netherlands, the government of the Germany and the UK, and especially the government of Egypt for partnering and organizing this water pavilion. We thank all the partners who make the great contribution to the success of water pavilion, which really made a great contribution also to the success of the COP27. And let's be together and make water on the top of the next, on the top agenda of the next COP in Dubai.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I start with you, Hank. You have been at many COPs before.